When San Franciscan punk band Green Day released their major label debut album, Dookie, in 1994, they'd no idea what they were letting themselves in for. Within a few short weeks, the album would enter the US charts at the start of what would prove to be a 2-year stay, propelling the band on to worldwide sales in excess to date of 30 million. In doing so, they would sell more records than all of the UK 70s punk bands combined. More records than bands like The Clash and the Sex Pistols, by whom they were so obviously influenced. Vocalist Billy Joe Armstrong had set out to write songs about his own life, but in doing so had captured the imagination of the X generation, unwittingly becoming its spokesman and taking his friends, bassist Mike Dirnt and drummer Trey Cool on the ride of their lives. Since then, they've maintained their position as the biggest punk band on earth. But their new album, American Idiot, charts new and exciting waters for these school friends from Berkeley.
Me and Mike met each other in we were 10 years old in the 5th grade. And then we just we're both had the same interest in music and, and goofing off and being class clown at the same time. So, yeah.
You just played together over the course of, you kind of learned how to play together in a lot of ways, too. One thing led to another. Once, eventually we ended up getting into punk rock music and in a band at the same time. All the other kids were playing, baseball and football and doing just normal kid stuff. And I don't know, our parents were always gone, so we had our guitars, and that was something we thought was really cool. And it's just kind of where our focus went. And there was a lot of rebellion in there too. And I got into a lot of trouble that I never got caught for.
Growing up together on the streets of Berkeley, Mike had become inseparable from his friend after the death of Billy Joe's dad, renting a room at his house and hanging out together at the Gilman Street Project.
Well, we were already kind of in a band, so it was kind of happening at the same time that we started a band. Gilman was happening. So we ended up, it was just a perfect place to play because we were, 15 years old, and it was an all-ages place, so, it was where we could really just kind of hone our skills and, have a good time and meet cool people. Most of the bands that we were first inspired by, I think, were the local bands that we were from. We loved like all the, we loved like the Clash and the Pistols and Dead Kennedys and bands like that were older than us. But at that point, those bands were over. Our sort of heroes weren't really happening anymore. So, and punk rock was sort of looked down upon as being dead or whatever. So, for us, being at Gilman Street, it was like, the new heroes were sort of coming out, which was like, for us, was like a band like Operation Ivy or Crimp Shrine, which was, we were really involved, and we really come from a strong local scene. Yeah. So, and that's what, I love about, being in a band is that, there's, you get influenced by your peers, too.
Early incarnations of Green Day performed under the name Sweet Children, but the arrival on the scene of drummer Trey Cool in 1989 cemented the lineup.
I like to consider Trey as being the original drummer of Green Day. I think we went...
Yeah, we didn't really become Green Day until we started really gelling with Trey as a three-piece and as a band. Yeah. We were never really a band. We were 3 guys playing together. Then when Trey joined, we became a band.
I just thought these guys were great, I always, we were playing shows together, and like I was in a different band, and I was like, those guys can write songs, those guys can fucking sing.
In 1990, Green Day signed to local indie label Lookout, and over the next 2 years would release 2 albums, 1039, Smooth It Out Happy Hours, and Kerplunk. They also toured like demons.
It was a very independent label, and he wasn't a get-rich-quick scheme on anyone's part. It's just like, hey, we're going to put your records out, and you guys can actually go out on tours and get your stuff out there. And it was more like a co-op or a socialist thing.
It was a long time there was no distribution beyond like the Bay Area, really.
Yeah, we'll make records, and you can take them with you in a van and go on tour.
Yeah. Lookout is the ultimate example of word of mouth. Like it's really just started. And the thing that was so great about it is that Lookout was, it wasn't just about putting out a record, it was putting out several records by several bands that were, part of the scene, and it's such an underdog, it's sort of label. It never really gets like, like a lot of the New York bands and LA bands get their sort of they're just desserts. But I think look out, there's a lot to be said for what they did with punk rock.
Do you have the time?
Work because we were, not just in education, but we were seeing the world. We were traveling, driving our own van back and forth across the United States and Canada, traveling here in the winter of '91 and playing 64 shows all across Europe and squats and everything. I mean, that's an education, and you can't describe the smell of a place to somebody.
Work was the shit you did before tour to enable you to go on tour.
Yeah.
We're gonna work really hard not to work.
Yeah. You can either work hard to pay rent, or you can work hard to put money into a van that you can call home.
Every time that we went on tour, the shows ended up getting bigger and bigger, and it started getting to a point where we were selling more tickets than we were records, and so and then we just had that's when we had to start sort of looking at like, our options as far as, how far can we take this, and we have this opportunity to really, to like live off this band and be able to play music for the rest of our lives. So, we were like about 21 years old, and that's when we pretty much ended up signing. After Kaplang, we ended up signing to Reprise Records.
For Green Day to sign to Reprise, however, was no easy thing. To some fans, it smacked of selling out their indie roots. To the band themselves, though, it was a crucial move.
At the time, it was a decision that we had to make. I mean, it was either that or kind of quit and go get jobs, flipping burgers, which is all fine and dandy, but it's not what we want to do. And we, I think we got, it was difficult for us. It was, it's kind of like leaving home again. But, when we look at a lot of our Heroes records and stuff like that, they were all on major labels too. And so you kind of have to balance the two and make a decision. I would rather, fear of failure is the biggest impedance of success, I think, and I would rather die trying.
We're always having band practice all the time, so by the time we were signing to Reprise, I think we knew what we wanted to sound like already, and we had years of experience, and then we were like we had this song, we knew what we wanted to sound like, and so we had the majority of our album written even before we signed the papers.
His major label debut, Dookie, was released in 1994. In pretty much the same week that Billy Joe got married, found out that he was about to become a father, and headed out on the road with the Lollapalooza tour.
Ended up getting married and having a kid really young, and then my band was taking off at the same time. Like you said, it was like, we started Lollapalooza and we were this big, and then by the time we were done with Lollapalooza, we were this big, and that was a month. We weren't that's not a lot of time, and so it was a really scary time, but really exciting at the same time. I would never, I have no regrets.
It was great being the first band at Lollapalooza and outselling all the other bands combined. But then playing first, that was kind of interesting.
Well, I think we were swept away by beer for a while.
Well, I think if we just like kind of kept the core of remember what the catalyst of why we want to do this, that's what was really important, was to not get selfish and recognize that we're all three individuals, but we're all three individuals coming together for the same reason, and to play music, and to have that respect for each other too, because I think a lot of bands, they just get carried away with believing their own hype or their own persona, and we always definitely make sure that we humiliate each other every once in a while to make sure that we keep each other in check.
Whatever it was about Dookie, it became the album of Generation X, with songs about boredom, hopelessness, girlfriends and drugs. And with the death of Kurt Cobain, Billy Joe was seen by many as his generation's spokesman.
I just feel like I was just being a spokesperson for myself, and
he had a very loud voice.
Yeah, just try to write the songs that are meaningful to me and talk about my life, and it's like, and if there's other people that may feel disenfranchised that sort of recognize that, then that's cool.
I think of it more as like a photograph of that time of Billy's life and that time of all